Legion, hi. This is my review on the latest Joker movie, so prepare for that. So sorry if my voice is a little raspy. I'm getting over a cold. That's why this review is so late. But here's where we get down into the nitty gritty of this. I'm gonna start off by saying that this is a movie that if people said that they didn't like this movie, I'm not gonna argue with you, and I'm not going to disagree with anything because I could definitely say this is a movie that's not made for everybody. And I know a lot of people were a little off put when they found out it was a musical. That didn't outtake me or anything like that. Because I mean, I'm a guy who grew up in theater and all that, so I'm okay with musicals on it. And honestly, as for a comic book movie based on the character of the Joker, it fit in real well and all that. Also, along with the fact that it kind of played into his fantasy in a way, because if you saw the first Joker movie, he had a lot of moments where there was fantasy and then there was reality, and you couldn't really pick out what was what and all that. This one is there are times where he dives into full fantasy, and it's like basically he's riding on a high of what he went through in the last movie. So in the beginning of this movie, we start off with the whole classic Warner Bros. Introduction, which is like the introduction you would see to a Looney Tunes cartoon. And in this Looney Tunes cartoon is basically like a brief summary of what happened in the last maybe 30 minutes of the last film. And in this, there's two Jokers. There's the Shadow, and then there's the actual Arthur Fleck. Now, the Arthur Fleck and the Shadow are two different identities. As in, you see the Shadow, lock Arthur in a locker, take his makeup, his suit. He goes on stage with Murray while Arthur's in the dressing room. And you see the Shadow is basically doing the bad stuff, and Arthur comes in the last moment, Then the Shadow puts on the makeup, the costume on Arthur, and then that's when the police show up and arrive and come and catch Arthur, which is kind of the theme of what his lawyer is trying to get with him in his case. So basically the theme of being is Arthur and Joker two different personalities, and is his mental instability, can that really get him a lighter sentence and to not give him the death penalty? To which is my surprise that Harvey Dent was acting as a defense attorney. Well, no, not. He was acting as the attorney to give Arthur the death penalty, which I didn't know Harvey Dent was going to be in this movie. That was a nice surprise to me. But like I said though, Arthur's lawyer is trying to see if they can get him a way to see hey, he has mental stability, and the third, we could probably get him some help. Harvey Dent is not going for it at all. He's trying to make it seem like Arthur is not mentally disabled. He knew what he was doing. He is a straight psychopath. He needs to be put down. And while during this film, you see how Arthur's life is and his. I don't know if it's a jail for the criminally insane because there are some lunatics in there, but yeah, you could see that while he's in this jail, that basically his life hasn't changed from the beginning of the first movie because basically it's the same thing, just different environment. The first one, he was at work dealing with bullies, now he's in jail dealing with bullies. This man is literally broken down. He doesn't tell jokes anymore. He doesn't smile. Hell, the guards use him as a joke and all that, always making fun of him and all that. Like I said, different environment, but the same factors and all that. It's also during this time where he actually walks by a music class and he sees Harley Quinn, and she does the whole to him like the way he did was in the last movie to his neighbor. And she tells her story. Obviously, this one's different because, again, this is a different era. This is a different version of the characters and all that. This Harley Quinn is not a doctor. She's a patient. And she says that she's in there because she burned her apartment complex down and that her dad died in a car crash. and her mom really didn't care about her at all. So while they're in the asylum, they connect because they love living into this fantasy and all that. And honestly, they connect even more deeper as the time they spent together and all that. And this is where you really see the smartness in Harley Quinn. Well, I don't even know if I could say if it's clever or if it was just downright like maybe she's just lost in the fantasy. But like, come to find out that this version of Harley Quinn, like, yeah, she never she never burned the apartment complex down. Her dad's still alive. Her dad's a well-known doctor who's doing well for himself. So she's very rich. And also, fact is, there was a time where she said that she lived in the same neighborhood as Arthur. Never did. She lives on the other side of town in the rich folks section. So she probably never even walked step 1 foot in his neighborhood. All this is what his lawyer's telling him and all that. And come to find out that she checked herself into the asylum just to get near him because she's a Mephisto's fan. Which makes a lot of sense because that's how Harley started off. I mean, Harley was always crazy in the comics, but it's just that with Joker, she became an obsessed fan rather than, doctor-patient relationship. Also, at this point, we also got to realize that on record, Arthur has only been accused of killing 5 people, which are the 3 people on the subway, his former co-worker, and Murray. No one knows about his mother. So again, she gets checked out the asylum and all that. They still indulge in this fantasy and all that. You see, stuff gets more and more out of hand in court case. Harvey's cracking on him even harder. He's slipping more and more into fantasy. It gets to the point where Arthur fires his lawyer. Also, keep in mind that every time Harley comes near him, she always has like these type of things that she did. Like there were quite a few instances where she would grab makeup and paint him as his true face, the way what he usually is and all that, because that's what she likes about him and all that. Also, they brought in quite a few people from the last film. Like one, they bring back his former therapist, telling him about like all the stuff he did, all the stuff he wrote about, all the stuff he talked about. Stuff that could be used against him, showing that he's like actually, what's the word for it? Coherent. Even the fact that like they even brought the woman that he stalked in the first film, confirmed he didn't hurt them. He just literally walked into her apartment and then just and then just walked out. But it turns out that her daughter and Arthur's mother like really talked a lot, and then when the mother and her talked, she turns out that she actually made fun of Arthur behind his back, saying how he can't make it as a comedian, he's not funny, he seems like he's sad, how he just annoys her and all that. Just so much crap behind this dude's back. So, again, like I said, he fires his lawyer after hearing all that, represents himself, but when he does this, he paints his own face as the Joker, his persona and all that. And again, this is kind of where you kind of see like the split and all that, whereas when he's the Joker, he doesn't have his stutters, he doesn't have his speech impediments, he's basically a whole new person. And you see, we see this when we bring back Gary. And honestly, this is the part where it can kind of get to you in a way. Because Gary testified saying like how, like, what Arthur did to the former subject on. But Gary actually made you feel bad for him. How when he took out his own former co-worker, Gary never felt more scared in his life, and he's always been scared since that day. And now he's like, man, he basically told Arthur, like, I can't even look at you anymore, even though you were the only one that was nice to me in that workshop and all that. You never made fun of me. And you've kind of felt for that, man. So we're tying up the case and all that. And after a few musical numbers on it, and again, these musical numbers come out randomly throughout the show, throughout the movie and all that. And I'll be clear, it's not one of those musicals where like everyone breaks out into character, right? These are definitely fantasies in his head and all that. So it's not one of those movies where like everyone starts breaking out in choreography for dance and all that. So yeah, all this is fantasy. So as the court case is wrapping up, Arthur realizes that like this is all just it's all me. There's no Joker. There's just Arthur. I can't really put up this whole act anymore and all that. Realizing that he doesn't want to be in fantasy anymore, and then that's when Harley kind of just leaves the courtroom because she loves the fantasy. And in a way, when you think about it, it's kind of like a Mary Jane and Peter Parker Spider-Man dynamic. Because for a lot of you who don't know, Mary Jane didn't really like Peter Parker. She liked Spider-Man. So when she found out the one the same, she was more into the Spider-Man persona than the Peter Parker's persona because Peter Parker was so bland. And that was a dynamic in this because, again, like I said, every time she came near him, she always painted him up because she wanted to see the true him. So as the court case is going to a head and they're reading the verdict, they find him guilty on all charges. But it was during that where a car bomb blows outside the courthouse, making a big enough hole where Arthur could escape. But again, like I said, Harvey Dent is also in that courthouse too. So we also see how this version of Harvey Dent gets half his face burnt. They don't really focus on it, but you could definitely see he's going to have some permanent scarring on his face from that. So Arthur makes his escape big thoroughly, and honestly it wasn't easy. Like, he was dazed and all that, but like he makes his escape, goes back to his old neighborhood, goes back up to the stairs that he's most famously always walking up and dancing down. Sees Harley there, but she's not interested in Arthur Fleck anymore. She only loved the Joker. That's all she lived for was the fantasy. And the fact is that when she started singing, you realize that that's all she wanted. She just loved the fantasy. She didn't like reality. She liked fantasy. Again, like I said, Peter Parker, Spider-Man, Mary Jane. She was Mary Jane, and Arthur was her Spider-Man. She did not care for Arthur. She cared for Joker. So she leaves him behind, and with Arthur with Arthur not feeling like he has nothing left for him, he lets himself be captured by the cops that are coming back and all that. He gets taken back into incarceration and all that, and to a point where he gets lured to, I want to say, a trap by one of the guards because we never realized what this guy did. Basically, the guards say you have a visitor and all that, and then one of the inmates, which I have to admit, I am sorry I didn't mention this before, but this one inmate, we always seen him in the background every time they mentioned Arthur, but we never really got a headcanon on who he was. I knew he was going to be something significant because every time Arthur was in the room, he was always right there with him and all that. He was in the background, and it did focus on him a couple of times, so I knew he was going to have some significance. So this dude makes a joke to Arthur and all that, and basically it's like a rebuttal to what he said in the beginning to Murray in the first film. You get what you deserve. And lo and behold, this dude shanks Arthur like a good 3 to 5 times. And in a musical number, that's when the curtains fall. Arthur breaks into his fantasy song, and he literally dies. With the dude laughing in the background, saying that he killed Arthur, aka Joker. And they didn't focus on this, but you could kind of see, dude carved up his face in a smile as if he was going to be new Joker. So I was like, is that where they're going with this? Because again, we don't know the Joker's name. I mean, one common name the Joker goes by is Jack. So could it be that this could be the new Joker that will arise in this universe? Because again, there's 3 Jokers that are canon. There's the comedian, the criminal, and the psychopath. So again, with that being said, Um, I give this movie a 6 out of 10 because again, I'm okay. I love musicals. Like I'm okay with musical numbers and all that. I just know this movie is probably not gonna be in for not is not gonna be for everybody and all that. For instance, like I said, I went into this movie with knowing two things. One, it was going to be a musical, and I did hear about the spoiler of him dying, but I did not know if that was going to be true or not. But obviously, by seeing the movie, it was true, and I'll admit that did blow my mind because you would not expect that. But again, like I said, even in the TV series Gotham, there was multiple Jokers. So who's to say that someone won't arise to the mantle in this universe as well? But hey, that's my reaction. That's my review. Tell me what y'all guys think. Till next time.